Hey there, it's Lacey J, here to ask you to go to spacebearmedia.com right now to access all our content, buy yourself some merch, and most importantly, send us a message, a question, fan mail, even hate mail. We'll respond on YouTube. Also, please remember to rate and review the podcast on your favorite app or share it with someone you know who loves Lost. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Lost in My 40s, Season 5, Episode 3. It's called Jughead. It's a Desmond episode, and it's a Ben episode. But first, how's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Great.
Did you jump in there quickly, Ben? I didn't even hear you over my own voice.
Yeah, I said lucky you guys when you said it was a me episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so disclaimer, I'm recording this episode and maybe the next one after a night of insomnia, so if I'm a little bit cray-cray, lucky you. Ben.
This is different than normal?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Ben, could you update us on what the power rankings look like after the first 2 episodes of Season 5?
I can do that, yes. We
right.
ended up with a 2-way tie. Oh, sorry. I will start at the bottom. Giggity, yes, indeed. We have third from the bottom, Rose, with her rampant emasculations, negative 9 points.
Yeah.
Ethan, no surprise, his face shows up on screen and he immediately goes into the bottom, negative 19 points. And everyone's favorite flailing flambe Frogurt with negative 29 points. Yeah, I was trying to get there. It's little tongue-tied.
My favorite flavor of Frogurt.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
All right.
At the on the other end, we have got in third place Sawyer with 7 points.
Yay for Sawyer.
In second place, everyone's favorite, except for Christy, Ben Lenz with 12 points. And we have a solid tie in first place between Hurley and Mr. Dan Faraday, each with 20 points.
All right. That sounds great. Christy. Nope. That's next week. Ben. Take us through Jughead, please.
Yes, this is the structure of this episode is a little different. There's only one flashback in it, and we start in that flashback. Begins on a tropical island, sort of beach market with a bunch of canopies covering tables of goods and produce. There are kids running around. There are goats all about, a lot of them tied up. I actually found it funny the way that it was written in here. It says, there are goats tied to stakes and human children running free.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
And it sort of depends on how you read that.
Yeah, no, I think the goats should be running free and the children should be on stakes.
That is how it read. So,
You could have just said kids and covered both your bases.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
true. Look at that.
I mean, as long as they were baby goats, but yeah.
There's a group of men shouting in some kind of Filipino dialect inside a wooden garage with bicycle wheels and hula hoops hanging from the walls. A lone light bulb on the ceiling illuminates a group of men gambling, surrounded by liquor bottles and an overfull ashtray. Back in the market, you hear Desmond come onto the scene, yelling a name repeatedly, Efren Salonga. I think that's how that is spelled. Is it Efren or Ephraim?
It was Efren.
Was it Efren? Okay.
I think so.
I've never heard Efren before, but I've heard Ephraim as a name. So,
do you want to know what's amazing? I just glanced down at the outline and I see I spelled it 3 different ways, though. E-F-R-E-N, E-F-R-A-N, E-F-R-O-N. I don't know what I was doing there.
And down on the bottom, you spell it B-O-O-T-H.
Boothe?
Boothe, all right.
So Desmond is, Efran, whatever his fucking name is. He's yelling that name. He puts a man on one man's chest and asks if he's Efren. When it's not him, the frantic Desmond whirls around shouting again, Efren Salonga, at no one in particular. Desmond halts at a bare-chested man, but it's not the man who he's looking for. Inside the garage, the shouting in Filipino continues. In the market, Desmond consults a piece of paper in his hand and then shouts more desperately than ever. Back in the garage, the shouting over the game continues. Desmond pushes aside a thin curtain of hanging beads and shouts once more. The dozen or so gamblers and onlookers look up at Desmond, who looks around at each of them, holding up a paper and repeats the name, Efren Salonga. A dirty-faced gambler at the table replies suspiciously, "Who are you?" Desmond asks, "Are you the doctor?" And Efren Salonga replies, "Yes. What's the matter with you?"
What's the matter with you? Does anybody remember that Saturday Night Live skit?
No.
All right, never mind. Alrighty.
Moments later, two sets of legs race down a wooden dock. No bodies attached. It's kind of a weird scene, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just legs running down.
Just legs, just disembodied legs. It's like the opposite of the metaverse where nobody has legs. It's like,
yeah, that thing is creepy. I don't think are they even pushing that metaverse anymore? Or did Zuck realize that was fucking stupid? But yeah, they
don't
would
even
show
know what that is.
Well, it was the VR.
It's the future, obviously.
Yeah, the VR part of the metaverse where like Zuckerberg thought everybody was just going to jump into the metaverse and have all their business meetings in there, I guess. I don't know. But inside of it, the little like the avatars that you become, they have no legs. They just float around. Yeah. So
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Desmond leads Salonga carrying a black doctor's bag around the corner of the docks. Desmond says that there is a lot of blood and is worried that the doctor won't know what to do. As they leap around the sailboat, the doctor asks, "How much blood?" They go to the hatch where Penny can be heard screaming in pain. Desmond tells her he's a doctor, or tells her that this man is a doctor, and that she's going to be okay. Desmond cradles her head in his arms, and we can see she is pregnant and obviously in labor. Desmond tells her to breathe. Penny says she can't. The doctor has gloves on now. He grabs at some forceps and moves closer to Penny, who screams, "Oh, make it come out." First...
Yeah, the forceps that were in the bag with everything else and not sanitized.
Yeah.
It's like slinging goop off of it. Ugh.
Yeah.
At first, the doctor tells Penny to hold it. She's moaning that she can't, but then the doctor yells, "Push, push." Desmond is encouraging Penny, who is screaming in pain. The doctor is yelling, "Push harder, push harder." Desmond says, "I can see the head." "I can see the head, brother." That's what I actually texted him.
Yeah.
I imagine the baby comes out, "Hey, brother." Good delivery, brother. One more instruction to push, and Penny's screaming gives way to elated panting and the sound of a baby crying. Penny sobs while Desmond says, "Oh my God, Penny, you did it." The doctor then announces, "It's a boy." Penny laughs a little and kisses Desmond, who whispers, "I love you," in her ear. The doctor wraps the baby in a blanket, and the baby is already very, very clean and very unwrinkled for a newly born baby and not nearly red enough, but okay.
And where did this doctor get a baby blanket?
Right. He won that in his previous wager. Somebody didn't have any money left, and they're like, "Oh, I got a baby blanket."
I'll take your kid's blankie.
Take your kid's
I thought
blankie.
maybe it just came out with the kid.
There you go.
He was blowing his nose into it earlier.
Oh, love it.
On that note, they gush over how beautiful the new baby is.
Entirely too beautiful and not dirty.
Shriveled. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not even supposed to have a clean baby at that point.
No.
Not covered in blood and feces.
I think the gush was the afterbirth.
Ew!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, now that you got the afterbirth, you don't have to go shopping for groceries for a couple days anyway.
That's
true.
Gross.
Ugh.
All right. Like,
There are
calm
people
down.
that do that.
There are people
you
that
know
do
people
that.
who do that?
Yeah, they'll eat it.
Crazy people eat the afterbirth. Eat the
Yeah. I don't
placenta.
know. Should we
Full
call
of
them crazy?
nutrients.
Waste not, want not.
Yeah, there are certain cultures that's a lot more normal, so I don't know if it's fair to say it's crazy, but I was going to say calm down Gwyneth Paltrow for a second.
All right.
There are also cultures where it's normal to mutilate women's genitals.
That's
that's
true.
True.
So,
Christy coming with the point.
We got dark. We got dark in a hurry. We went from Gwyneth Paltrow to mutilated genitals.
Yeah, well, it's normal in
What
our
did Gwyneth
culture to
Paltrow
mutilate.
do?
No, she's just wooey, and so I figured she probably ate her
Yeah.
placenta.
She's goopy.
Yeah,
Ew,
exactly.
God, yeah. She made a candle. This candle smells like my afterbirth.
Ew. It wouldn't surprise me. She's got the vagina one.
Ranger.
So,
Dear
God.
vagina.
Pig's puke.
Oh, we are so off the rails.
Also,
Yeah,
of course.
this train is
Okay.
Jesus.
well derailed.
Let's bring it back to the present here.
All
Off
right.
the island, a toddler with wild blonde curls and a white sweater sits on his father's lap while sailing on their boat. The father being Desmond, of course. Doismend.
Doismend.
Holy shit!
Whoa.
No.
Who?
Desmond points. I was going to say Doismend Pence. Desmond points to the horizon dotted with lights and says, "Beyond where you can see there's an island, and it's a very special island. I left it a long time ago. I never thought I'd see it again." Penny comes up from the deck below.
Was this not a Lion King moment, if you ever saw one?
And Desmond continues, "It's called Great Britain." And it's funny because he said it was special, and now he just says it's Great Britain. So what the fuck?
Well, because you're supposed to think they're at the island for
I know.
a millisecond, I guess. I don't know.
And he says, "And the most beautiful part of the island is Scotland. And that's where your daddy's from. There's mountains and glens and monsters and deep lochs. And it's where your mummy and daddy fell in love." And Penny chimes in, Penny Downer here. It's also where he broke her heart.
Dang.
Yeah.
Desmond says he thought he'd leave out that part. So Penny continues, "You also left out the bit about his grandfather, the man who sent a boat to the island to kill all of Daddy's friends."
Yeah, well, like, he's 2, Penny.
You won't remember
Maybe I'll
that.
tell that story
Seriously.
like when he's 16.
Seriously. She's practicing her delivery for greater impact later. Desmond assures her that they'll be in and out of the city and that her father will never know. She thinks it would be foolish to underestimate her father. And Desmond says, "But this has nothing to do with your father, Penny. We're here because of Daniel Faraday. What he told me, that everyone on the island is in danger and I'm the only one that can help them. I have to do this, Penny."
Mm-hmm.
Then we shift somewhere in time on the island, the actual island, the special island that is not Great Britain. A single line of survivors, Faraday, Miles, Charlotte, and 2 red shirts from Oceanic Flight 815 who survived last night's ambush, trek through grasses and leafy plants 10 feet high.
10 feet. Exactly.
Well, I guessed.
Faraday is confirming with Miles that Sawyer said to meet at the creek. A red shirt pushes past Miles and Faraday falls to the back of the line. He puts his arm on Charlotte's shoulder and asks her about her headache. She says it's gotten worse, but since they're running for their lives, she's not complaining. He asks if she has any dizziness or double vision. She replies, "Both, actually." "Why do you look so worried? Is it because you know what's happening to me?" Daniel tells her that nothing's going to happen to her because he won't let it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see.
Miles yells that they've arrived at the creek and then complains when he realizes nobody else is there. Faraday thinks that they should wait in case they haven't arrived. Charlotte wonders if they've already come and gone. Miles wonders if they're dead.
Well, you would know, Miles.
Yeah, of course.
If they were nearby, he would know.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess that's true. Yeah.
Daniel says, "Miles, right there, that kind of attitude, not exactly what we need right now. People are scared enough as it is." Miles?
You kind
But
of sounded
Miles'
like
attention-
him there, babe. Like with the not exactly. You sort of
Yeah.
Faraday there for a sec.
I slipped into it for a second. I was channeling my Faraday. Like,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't like, I'm also not a whole lot of sleep, so I've tried not to go into everyone's accents today. But I may slip in and out of it depending on, if I'm feeling in the groove.
Slip in.
Giggity.
In and out.
Oh, yeah.
Little the old in out, in out.
Miles. But Miles' attention is now focused on a white tripwire running near the creek bank, near where the other 2 Flight 815 red shirts are wandering around haplessly.
Of course.
He moves to trace the tripwire to a claymore mine marked "Front Toward Enemy." Just as Miles screams, "Wait, don't move," an explosion of black earth erupts, and
It
one
took
of the
a
red
long
shirts.
time to say that, though. He was staring at it forever.
Yeah, he really did. He wanted to have somebody to talk to, I guess. Wait till they're dead, and then you can have a conversation. As one of the red shirts is thrown backward into the creek, which wouldn't happen, he would just be shredded into pieces. But
with a claymore, isn't that the point of a claymore? Is to shred you to pieces?
Yeah, a claymore is basically like a shaped charge with a bunch of pellets and shit. And it's basically like a giant shotgun blast that when it gets set off.
Have you ever seen the meme? I swear to God, it's been going around for years at this point, but it's like some woo-woo crystals like goober posted a picture of their steering wheel that they had like glued different crystals to protect their car. And then,
oh my God.
And then I know. And then there was a comment underneath it that just said, "Congratulations, you've turned your airbag into a claymore."
Yeah, no shit.
Crystal claymore. Seriously. What a dumb shit.
Well, the crystals would prevent them from getting in an accident.
Right, of course.
Wouldn't they?
Yeah. Wouldn't
definitely.
they? Of course they would.
Wouldn't they? Yeah.
Another explosion of white earth erupts nearby in the water. An instant later, another loud explosion and an eruption of dirt comes from behind the other red shirt, sending his body into the creek as well. Faraday, Charlotte, and Miles drop to the ground. 2 more explosions go off near them. 5 men, all in drab olive army clothing, run out of the jungle, pointing their bows and arrows at Faraday, Charlotte, and Miles. A rifle cocks, and a beautiful young blonde woman, no more than a teenager, steps out of the jungle. She points the rifle at the group and, in a British accent, says, "Who's in charge here?" See, I tried it that time. I don't know. Maybe that was more Australian. Miles nods.
It sounded a little more Australian.
Yeah.
Who's in charge here? There, that's
Is that
Cockney.
it? Who's in charge here?
Yeah.
Who's in charge here?
I ain't got shit all over him. Miles nods to Faraday and says, "He is." She points the rifle directly at Faraday, who raises his hand as if to shield himself from bullets. But instead of shooting, the young blonde woman stares at Daniel and says, "You couldn't just stay away, could you?" Lost title screen.
What? What does that mean, Derek?
Hmm.
Who is that lady, and why does she know him?
She probably has a restraining order. He's a kind of a creeper.
he's been like he's been like fapping outside her window through time. She's like, "Oh, you just couldn't stay away."
I would hope not.
He's like Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's like, "I've crossed oceans of time to fap near you."
Considering who I think she is.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
That'll be later.
Back to the present, off the island. Desmond and Penny's sailboat is docked on the Thames. Inside the boat, Penny opens the door to the master sleeping quarters where Desmond sits on the queen-size bed putting on his socks and shoes. He wants to know if the kiddo has finished his breakfast. Penny says, "Yeah, gave me a bit of a fight, but he listens in the end, unlike his father." She's channeling some Rose
Channeling
this
Rose.
episode.
I was just about
Seriously.
to say the same thing. Like, calm down, Penny.
God damn. Desmond says all he has to do is find Faraday's mother and tell her he's on the island. After that, he's done with this for good. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Penny is confused as to why he's suddenly remembering this now if Daniel told him on the island. Desmond says he knows it sounds insane, but all he knows is that Faraday knocked on the hatch door and told him to go to Oxford. He puts on a coat and promises her that he'll be back by dark and be done with this forever. He leans in to kiss her, and Penny says, "If you're going to promise me something, Des, can you promise me you'll never go back to that island again?" Before walking out the door, Desmond scoffs and says, "Why in God's name would I ever go back there?"
Uh-huh.
Oh, that sounds like some famous last words, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, somewhere in time on the island, the hostiles are dragging the dead red shirts from the creek while tied up Faraday, Charlotte, and Miles watch. The blonde wants to know where the rest of their people are since there were 20 of them at the beach. Daniel says, "Maybe they got blown up by some more of your landmines." She replies, "We didn't put them here. You did."
Huh?
What?
Miles gives Faraday a look. The blonde woman persists. "Once we leave here, it will be out of my control what happens to you. But if you cooperate now, things will go much easier for you. So where are the rest of your people?" Daniel says he doesn't know. Elsewhere on the island, the dead body of Mattingly lay on the ground in the jungle. Jones and Cunningham are on their knees with their hands up. Sawyer paces behind them with a machete, while Juliet stands over them with her arms crossed. Locke sits on a log, lost in contemplation, and wonders aloud, "Who are these people?" Sawyer replies, well, gee, I didn't have time to ask that with Frogurt on fire and all. Juliet says they attacked on the beach, but Locke ignores her. His attention is focused on Jones's rifle, which he's now holding. He says this is a .30 caliber M1 Garand rifle, and it looks new. Sawyer doesn't care and wants to know where Locke has been. For those of you who don't know, an M1 Garand rifle was the main service weapon of the United States military and of the United States Army in World War II.
I did not know, so thank you.
Yep. If you've been going through what I have been, James, maybe the more appropriate question would be, when the hell have I been?
Oh.
Ooh.
Sawyer inquires about Locke's leg, and Locke tells him he was shot. But before he can tell him who did it, Juliet interrupts. She thinks they should swap stories later because they need to meet the rest of the group at the creek right now. Sawyer replies, fine. Seeing as how we have no rope to make sure these two don't try to kill us again, guess we're just going to have to shoot them.
Well, now.
Just then, Cunningham whispers to Jones in Latin, Quare non sunt vestitus eis. I think that's it. And Jones replies back in the same language, tasse. Is that tasse?
I think so. I don't know.
I thought
it was
Okay.
ace.
No.
It's spelled
Tace.
Tace, which I think is tasse, but Sawyer whacks Joan on the back and Locke stands up. Juliet speaks Latin to the prisoners and asks, do you know who we are? Sawyer wants to know what language they were all speaking, and Juliet says, they're speaking Latin. The one asked, why aren't we in uniform? And this one told him to shut up. Locke wants to know how the men know how to speak Latin, and Juliet replies, the same reason I do, because they're others.
Oh.
I mean,
To be another, you got to know Latin.
I mean, they could have just been like, classically educated as well.
Who
Well,
takes
like,
Latin anymore?
She's a doctor,
Nerds.
so she would have taken Latin.
Yeah. I had a lot of friends that took Latin, honestly.
My brother studied Latin in undergrad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fabulously failed Latin in high school.
Fabulous.
They taught Latin in high school?
Yeah,
Yeah, my dad
schools,
took it in high school.
Really?
different
Okay,
schools
yeah,
in my
but-
county.
I know
Had
Latin,
different-
conolingus.
Oh my God. What was that, Christy? The difference of what now?
Different schools in my county had different languages available. Everybody had Spanish, but then different schools had other languages, and ours taught Latin. And when I was thrown out of Spanish for bullying the teacher, they put me in Latin for some fucking reason.
Hold up.
You crossed the Rubicon.
Back up. You were
Bullying
bullying
the
your Spanish teacher?
I was. I've since reached out to apologize,
Holy shit.
but I was
I've
horrible.
never heard this story before. I never knew that you bullied your Spanish teacher. Look at this.
I knew
After
her
all these
because-
years, I'm learning new things about you still.
Her daughter and I were the same age, and the teacher had been like one of our Sunday school teachers, and so I also knew her history, which is that she was a nun until she met her husband. And I used this information against her relentlessly in Spanish too.
Oh
And
my-
after 2 weeks, she called my mom crying, I don't know why Christy hates me, but she does. And I can't teach with her in the room.
oh
Wow.
my God.
God damn, you're
Christy.
hard.
I was terrible. I
Well,
was
this-
absolutely horrible. Like I said, I've reached out to apologize to her and her daughter.
Wow.
Lo siento.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there are others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Latin, others, and cruelty in high school.
Oh, boy.
All right. Back to the captured crew, where the young blonde hostel and 6 others, all in army clothing, escort Faraday, Charlotte, and Miles through the jungle. Merryday. Wow.
What's up?
Merryday. Boothe a day? What?
Merryday and Doismond. That's going in the
Jesus
episode title.
Doismend.
Faraday notices that one of the hostels has bloody bandages wrapped around both hands. Miles looks around, sensing something, and then whispers to Faraday that they just walked over a fresh grave containing 4 U.S. soldiers, dead just under a month. 3 of them shot. 1 of them died of radiation poisoning.
Oof.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No, it does not sound like fun. And Miles might be a smartass, but he does come in handy.
He does come in handy in a place where a lot
Yeah.
of people fucking die. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He talks to dead people.
Yeah. He'd be pretty fucking useless in a world of like immortals, but in a world of mortals, he's pretty handy.
Wow. Yeah, if you got a point there.
Daniel wants to know if any of them mentioned what year it was, but before Miles can answer, the blonde woman says, "We're here." The group emerges into a clearing where an army tent camp of nearly a dozen drab-looking tents has been erected among the palm trees. There's lots of activity in the camp. The group heads to the central tent, which has an open-air front canopy, forming a sort of foyer to the tent. Excuse me. The blonde yells,
what I
"Richard,
think about your
we're
fancy
back."
tent.
And then out of the darkness of the tent interior steps Richard fucking Alpert.
What?
Looking
Again?
the same as always.
Exactly the same as he always does, wearing
Motherfucker
pretty
don't
much the
age.
same gear. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like, it works for me. I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
The blonde tells Richard that they caught 3 of them by the creek and that Faraday is the leader. Richard asks Daniel his name, and Faraday snaps back, "What's your name?" Miles grins at Daniel's loftiness.
He did. He really loved that moment. Did you see that? Where he was like, "Oh, look at Daniel. Collect the clap back."
Got some balls.
Because he looked kind of proud of him, I think, a little bit.
And then Richard looks at Faraday and says, "My name is Richard Alpert. I assume you've come back for your bomb?"
What?
Excuse me?
What?
What?
Back to the present, off the island, bells in a church tower are ringing. Desmond walks to a familiar columned and arched passage at Oxford University. The scene changes, and he's now waiting for the woman at the front desk of the archives to give him some information. She says, "No, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not finding a record of any Faraday." Desmond finds this impossible and presses her, but the woman says, "Sir, there's no record of any Faraday ever having been employed here at Oxford." And she goes back to her typing. Desmond is still insistent, and he says, "I visited him. I went to his lab. It was in the attic. It was above the physics department." The
We
woman
jerked off
typing
together.
away.
Yes.
The woman keeps typing away, so Desmond apologizes and leaves and said, "Oh, I must have made a mistake." Back outside on the campus, Desmond searches a corridor with doors marked lab. He comes to one marked Department of Physics, Clarendon 142-08.
Oh.
He steps inside and finds a locked door marked danger. This room is under fumigation. Do not enter.
Yeah, it's been fumigated.
Desmond checks to see that nobody is in there and then pushes into the dark room. He flips the light on to find machines draped in dust cloths and old file boxes. Desmond pulls the cover off a chalkboard to find it's been wiped clean. He realizes that he's standing on some spilled files and looks down to find something in a frame. He picks it up and finds a photograph of Faraday and a blonde woman with curly hair. Desmond removes another cloth and finds the equipment that Faraday had used on the rat Eloise, the rat maze, during the episode The Constant.
Mm-hmm.
A voice says, "Yeah, I wouldn't touch that." A startled Desmond turns to see a custodian who keeps talking and says, "I wondered when someone would figure out we weren't just fumigating here." He wonders if Desmond is a professor, and Desmond admits he isn't. The custodian starts to cover the rat maze again. Desmond wants to know why he said not to touch it, and the custodian replies, "Because I'm the one who had to take the rats that he made run through this bloody thing down to the incinerator so that nobody would find out what he was up to."
Oh, my.
But why does that mean I can't touch that? I mean, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
that sucks you had to do that. But why does
It's
that
not-
preclude me from putting my finger on a piece of wood?
It's not like it's contagious or whatever.
Right. Desmond confirms that the man is talking about Daniel Faraday. And the custodian says, "Look, I'll forget you broke my lock if you tell your mates that all you found down here was rubbish left behind by a madman." Desmond thinks this is fair, but before leaving, he asks why the university says there's no record of Faraday. The custodian says, "Well, can you blame him? I mean, after what he'd done to that poor girl?" A concerned
What?
Desmond replies, "What girl?"
Girl.
Somewhere in time on the island. Miles, Charlotte, Faraday, each with their hands bound in the front, are pushed in an army tent. Faraday pushes back a little in defense of Charlotte. The hostile exits. Charlotte lets Daniel know she's okay, and Miles says, "We are so dead." Faraday tries to reassure them that as long as they stay together, all they need to do is wait for another flash. Miles wants to know when that'll be, and Daniel says, could be 5 minutes, could also be 5,000 years.
Specific.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was kind of chastising Miles earlier for that. He should have just said it'll probably be soon, so people don't panic. But
yeah.
Seems like they're lasting longer, though.
Yeah.
Lasting longer or coming quicker? Because you mean the flashes,
it seems
right?
like the time they're spending in a certain time is longer than.
Yeah.
Seems like they're getting longer.
I see.
Just using stay hard.
Charlotte wants to know what is happening, and Faraday says he suspects the hostiles think they're American military, so they should pretend just to keep safe. Richard pulls the flap open and steps into the tent. The young blonde hostile and the bow and arrow wielding male hostile both follow. Richard says, "Sorry, am I interrupting?" Ellie tells me you're not willing to reveal where the rest of your squad is. Faraday says they'd just kill them if he did. And Albert responds, "We didn't start this, friend. Your people attacked us. You came to our island to run your tests. You fire on us, and what? You expect us not to defend ourselves?" Daniel says he doesn't know about any attacks and that they were all scientists. Richard wants to know if they are there to recover it. And Daniel says if he means the hydrogen bomb, then yes. He also points out that he suspects the man with bandages on his hand has radiation burns. Faraday pleads with Richard that the device is unstable and can destroy the entire island, so he needs to let Faraday render it inert before they all die. Richard wants to know how he's supposed to know that Faraday isn't on a suicide mission. And Daniel replies, because I'm in love with a woman sitting next to me, and I would never do anything to hurt her.
Oh,
Rocky did
Rocky! He loves you!
Alpert considers this and says, all right, take care of your bomb. But you try anything else, and you will hurt her. Elsewhere on the island, Locke is carrying the rifle and flipping the compass over in his hand. In front of him marched the two captured hostiles, their hands clasped together on the back of their heads. Sawyer's in front of them, and Juliet leads. Sawyer wants to know who taught her Latin, and Juliet says, Others 101. Gotta learn Latin, language of the enlightened.
Oh.
Sawyer smiles and says, enlighten my ass. Locke is talking to Cunningham and tells him they better talk now, because when they make it to the creek, there will be some very mad people. Cunningham says the rest of their people, or very dead people, yeah. Cunningham says the rest of their people have been killed or captured because Sawyer yelled, meet at the creek.
Oops.
So they know where to find them. Jones glares at Cunningham, and Sawyer says, well, maybe I should have said it in my secret language.
Pig Latin.
Ig pay atenlay.
Ukfe uye.
That'd be eat may, eat tay. That would be meat, I think, right?
Eat may?
Eat may, yeah.
Yeah, eat may is meat, yeah. Juliet then takes control and has a conversation with Cunningham in Latin. She tells him they are not the enemy and asks to be taken to the camp to see Richard Alpert. Locke's ears perk up and he says, did you just say Richard Alpert? Oh, Cunningham gives in and starts to give directions to their camp.
Yeah, Locke got a Woody.
Yep. Cunningham gives in and starts to give directions to their camp when Jones runs over to Cunningham and just snaps his fucking neck.
Damn, Jones!
Then takes off running. Sawyer is yelling at Locke to shoot him. Locke raises his rifle, but instead of shooting, he just watches him run. Sawyer grabs the rifle from Locke and shoots. Jones stumbles a bit, but keeps running and gets away. Sawyer is pissed and wants to know why Locke didn't shoot him, and Locke says, because he's one of my people.
My people.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Present day, off the island. Desmond is walking down a street of English row houses dressed in a ball cap, sunglasses, and a scarf. He stops, consults a piece of paper, and squeaks open a wrought iron gate. He knocks on the door, and a middle-aged woman wearing a Quick Mart vest answers the door. Desmond introduces himself and asks for Teresa Spencer. The woman introduces herself as Abigail, Teresa's sister, and seems confused that Desmond is asking to speak with her. Desmond mentions Daniel Faraday at Oxford, that Daniel Faraday at Oxford gave him Teresa's name. Abigail looks at Desmond sternly and then says, Daniel Faraday? Well, why didn't you say so? Please, you must come in. Abigail leads Desmond into a room where a monitor beeps steadily. A horrified Desmond looks at a bedridden woman being fed by a nurse. The woman is middle-aged with blonde, curly hair.
Ruh-roh.
The woman's eyes are open and she's eating, but is otherwise unresponsive. Abigail folds her arms and says, "He didn't tell you, did he?" Desmond confirms he didn't and asks if Teresa can hear them. Abigail says, "No, Teresa's away right now."
Oh, we know that. We know we know what that means.
She continues, "Well, sometimes she wakes up, thinks she's 3 and wants to know where her dolly is. Yesterday, she was talking to our dad. He died 5 years ago." Desmond says it was a mistake to come and tries to leave, so Abigail makes a comment about how she's not surprised since Daniel left too.
Damn,
Desmond
lady.
turns around and says, "He left her like this?" And Abigail says, "Went running off to the States, never to be heard from again. He abandoned her. What kind of man does that? I seriously don't know what we would have done if it hadn't been for Mr. Widmore."
What?
Oh, no.
Widmore again.
Yeah, you know he's going to pop up.
This had nothing to do with your father, Penny.
Exactly. Nothing
No.
at all. Nothing at all. I'm done with this after this little chore. Desmond stares, shocked by the name drop, and Abigail continues, "Daniel's benefactor. He funded his research, and he took responsibility for the result of it. He's been taking care of Teresa ever since this happened to her. Everything here is due to Mr. Widmore. God bless him."
Yes,
Back
my
on the
sister's
island.
a vegetable. God blessed him.
Back on the island, inside the army camp, Charlotte, Miles, and Faraday sit with their hands bound together. Daniel is explaining to them that in the 1950s, the U.S. government tested H-bombs in the South Pacific. Miles says, "Lucky us." Charlotte tells Faraday that he didn't have to say that he was in love with her. Convince him that it wouldn't blow up the island. Daniel says, "I said what I said because I meant it, Charlotte."
Oh.
Whoa.
Charlotte looks touched by this just as Ellie comes in to take Faraday with her. She picks up his pack and ushers him out of the tent. Outside is Albert, who unties Faraday and says, "Whatever you superiors told you, I want you to know the truth. A month ago, we found 18 members of an army battalion right here in our jungle, setting up camp. We gave them the opportunity to leave the island peacefully. They weren't willing to do that, so I was forced to kill them. All of them."
Okay. So Ellie, when she said, you're back, she really thought they were American military, huh?
Yep.
Because Miles looks the part back then.
Yeah, he does.
well.
He does. Well, people were smaller back then, and he was in Saving Private Ryan, so, you know.
Miles was in Saving Private
He
Ryan?
was?
Yeah, he played Opham.
No shit.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
the little dorky guy that was a translator.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the same
Well, and
actor.
back then they also didn't send women into combat. So
This is true.
having Charlotte
Yeah.
with them.
Oh, yeah,
is
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she was with the USO.
With those
Doing a little
curls?
dancer.
Could be, yeah.
They didn't send the dancers into combat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey, everyone made
fine.
mistakes in that war.
Oh, my goodness.
Faraday wants to know who forced him, and Richard said he follows a chain of command. Just then, Jones comes running into the camp to tell Richard that they were surprised and outnumbered, but he escaped. Ellie chimes in, "Outnumbered, eh?" Jones tells her to shut up and asks about Daniel being there. Richard says Daniel is there to help them take care of their problem. Jones
like an
argues that
abortion?
Daniel is one of them and can't be trusted. Richard ignores him and tells Ellie to get going. She takes Daniel and leaves. Richard wants to know how Jones escaped, and when Jones says he ran away, Richard says, "And it never occurred to you that they might follow you?" And anyway, Jones replies, "Follow me? Their leader is some sodding old man. What do you think? He can track me? You think he knows this island better than I do?"
Maybe and maybe.
Uh-oh, Jones, you're underestimating Locke, and I think that's a bad idea.
Then, from the cover of the palm fronds above the valley, Locke is scoping out the situation when Juliet joins him. Obviously, they were able to follow Mr. British man.
Jones.
Of course. Kate would have just sniffed her way there.
That's true. Locke wants to know how she knew Richard would be here, and Juliet says, "Richard's always been here."
Oh, well, that's not ominous
Seems
at all.
like it. Yeah.
Locke asks her how old Richard is, but she ignores him and asks why he's so interested. Locke says, I'm interested in him because he was about to tell me how I could save us. But before he could finish, we were interrupted by that flash of light, and I'm hoping we can pick up where we left off. Sawyer then interrupts and says, I hate to bust up the I'm another, you're another reunion, but Faraday, the guy that's actually going to save us, is being death marched into the jungle right now. They all look below to see Ellie marching Faraday at rifle point. Locke wishes them luck with rescuing Daniel, but he's going to finish the conversation with Richard Alpert. Sawyer thinks Locke will get them all killed, so Locke says he'll wait 10 minutes before approaching Richard in the camp. Sawyer looks at Juliet and says, what about you? You want to stay here in Crazy Town or help rescue the geek?
Sawyer's killing it in this episode.
Yes, he does.
Oh my goodness.
I do love that he wants to go rescue the geek, though.
Yeah.
I do too. Because he's a new man. Sawyer is a new man by season 5. I think his character arc, like emotional character arc, I think is one of my favorites. It gives me hope, right? Yeah. Like you can be this totally closed off, traumatized little boy inside who can't connect with anybody and robs people and then turn out to be this guy that we know now. It like gives me hope that, people really can change.
And if you have tan or totally, got a rockin' body and great dimples and all that, people will actually wait for you to become that good person.
Oh, that's awful.
Tell me. I'm going to ask this seriously. If he looked like Frogurt and act the way that he did in the first few seasons, would anyone give a shit if he were just a red shirt?
That's a good point.
Why are you trying to make us admit our biases?
I'm just, hey, I'm just throwing out some red meat here to
yes,
to
of
chew
course,
on.
of course. There are standards where people who fit into the typical sort of beauty standards, at least of the day, because those do change throughout time. Sure, they get breaks, they get special treatment. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to know what was interesting? I was listening to another podcast, which I cannot remember right now, but I'm just going to rip off the concept. Anyways, they were talking about how beauty standards are always about wealth. If you break it down, it's always about showing your wealth because go back to the Middle Ages. What was most beautiful? Pale as fuck skin and being fat as fuck because it meant you had money, you didn't have to work in the fields, and you were able to eat. And so that is what beauty was. Well, what is beauty now? Beauty now is somebody who has enough time and money to have a personal trainer and a chef and somebody that does their makeup. And it's all about being wealthy is really what it is. And when I first heard that, I thought, holy shit, I never really put that together in my mind, but it actually is true.
Yeah, because you see those 600-pound people are all live in a trailer park and are poor and eat horrible.
But then Henry VIII died at about 350 pounds or something like that. But he, that was because that's what he could do. He had the money and the means to have pale skin and a big old fat gut. And so that was what was attractive. Yeah. Anyways, tangent.
I can imagine if they did something like that. Instead, they'd have instead of my 650-pound life or something, that'd be like my 34-stone life.
Yeah.
I don't know how much a stone is, so I'm just kind of throwing that number out there.
I think
thought
a stone
was it 16 pounds or something like that?
I thought it was 20, but they still use stone in. I mean, I hear...
And they use hand still, too, for horses.
Honey, we were just watching Jimmy Carr the other day, and he was talking about somebody being 34 stone.
It's 14 pounds.
It's 14? Okay.
Pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
According to Google.
Oh, thanks, Google.
Exactly.
Jimmy Carr is the best. All right.
A bushel.
Back to the task at hand. Ellie and Daniel are walking through some tall grass. Faraday is looking at her kind of funny, and she wants to know why. Daniel stammers a bit and says, you're right, I'm sorry. It's just, you look like someone I used to know.
And Fap, too.
Oh, my God.
Fap, too. Fap relentlessly, too.
Yeah.
Ellie replies, I don't believe you, by the way. You may have Richard fooled. You Can't really expect me to believe that you, a British woman, and a Chinese man are all members of the U.S. U.S. military.
Exactly.
All right, so she did pick up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derek, you said earlier, you said you think you know who Ellie is. What does that mean?
Well, later on in the episode, I kind of caught. Is when I caught it. When I realized where they're going.
Okay. Well, when we get there, then
I'll let you know.
You let me know.
Will do.
Who are you, and what are you doing on our island? She continues. Daniel says who he is her best chance at disarming the bomb. So she points her rifle at him and tells her to do so. Faraday turns and spots a fairly short wooden firing tower surrounded by discarded wooden pallets and crates. On the firing tower, a wooden ladder leads up to a second-story perimeter platform. In the middle hangs a large green bomb that sways in the breeze. Now, if you're testing a device, why bother putting the bomb around it? The bomb is only so that it will fall correctly. If you're testing an explosive device or a nuclear device where it's not going to matter that there's a bomb casing around it.
A hydrogen bomb needs a fission reaction to set it off.
Yes.
Basically, it's like the old, Hiroshima
fusion
bombs.
device.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought they dropped those back then. I didn't think they put them on towers.
I think they typically just put them on towers and let them go. There's a bunch of atolls and things that don't really exist anymore.
Some awesome videos though.
Yeah.
Well, as we find out in a moment, this bomb's name is Jughead, the title of the episode. And you just mentioned Hiroshima, Derek. I came this close to doing the fun facts on Fat Man and Little Boy, two other famously named bombs. But then I thought you guys would all yell at me and call it a downer. So I did pick something else.
No.
I went to the Atomic Museum in New Mexico. It's fascinating.
It
is fascinating. I just thought every time I pick something
is amazing.
Every time I pick something morbid, I get yelled at. Now, the one time I don't, you guys wanted that. Oh, well, fuck.
Well, I mean, to be fair, those weren't H-bombs either.
No,
an H-bomb is a different type of device. It's
uranium and plutonium.
Far more destructive than an atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, so see, you guys are the ones that need to do the fun facts on Fat Man and Little Boy.
I love atomic power.
Oh, Derek just
had
a swing.
Going. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, seriously. I love atomic power.
Yeah, not even fusion. If we could just scale up fission for 50 years, that could give us the gap we need, or plug the gap.
Well, yeah,
so we don't have to rely on fossil fuels.
If
we want to survive.
If the human race wants to survive climate change, then we need to use nuclear power, and that's the end of the story. Yeah. there is no other option.
Yeah, like it is a really dumb numbers game, and there are no numbers where nuclear power is not used as at least a temporary stopgap.
And wind and solar and other renewable energies, but
you've got to use all of them.
But we can't do it without nuclear power. Yeah,
that is exactly right.
Anywho, it's Tangent Wednesday.
Yep. Ellie points her rifle skyward. On the second story of the platform, Faraday circles the H-bomb, which has been painted green with yellow trim and labeled in white Jughead. On the side of the bomb, a small access door has been labeled Trigger Control Panel.
Convenient.
Faraday leans in to get a closer look.
Well, episode's only 45 minutes.
Faraday leans down and underneath the platform edge guard chain and feels the edge of the bomb. He notes a seam in the metal that is corroded like a bad battery. Alarmed, he jumps back, heads to the edge of the firing tower, climbs down the ladder, and begins walking toward Ellie.
He would be dead.
He says, seriously. He says,
if he had gotten that close to a fissure like that?
If it were actually... if there were radiation coming off that so much so that it was affecting the metal like that, then all of the soft tissue in the area would be fucked up fairly quickly.
Very quickly. Like how quickly? You would have noticed it right away.
You get a metallic taste
or
in
like
the mouth
2 days later he's
vomiting
dead.
profusely within minutes. I mean, you can look up. They actually had accidents
within minutes
here where fission happened with someone in the room and it killed him within hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It depends on the dosage that you get, but typically what happens is you'll have like an immediate reaction to it, and then it's like you kind of get better, and then after you go through this phase of, it can be up to hours and hours where it seems like, okay, things are getting better, then it all goes to hell and your body just starts falling apart.
Have you guys watched Chernobyl on HBO?
I would rather.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yep.
So good. I would rather be killed instantly than know I had hours
and shitting
to live.
yourself
Imagine
your skin
the
is sloughing off.
Panic and anxiety. Oh my God. Just kill me instantly, please. For fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's not something that living tissue is supposed to experience on this planet. That's why we have a magnetosphere.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be us once Putin finally does it and drops a nuke on Seattle.
Just hope that's your near ground zero and it's instant.
That's what I'm saying.
Leave your shadow
that'll be. Yeah.
I should be instantly
Oh my gosh.
vaporized.
DFW is a good target too.
If Baltimore, yeah.
Yeah. Be a good way. I'm going to tell you, as far as ways to go.
Just bright light and it's over. Yeah.
As long as it's instant. Yeah. You
I
won't
remember
even
as a
know.
kid, that movie The Day After was like scared the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
me too.
Oh, what about the one little scene in Terminator?
Oh yeah,
that was pretty devastating too.
She turns
she's at the playground and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But Day After was worse because it showed the
stuff of nightmares.
Pretty accurate effects of what would happen if you survived.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, we got
just hope for
depressing
mutually
anyway.
assured destruction. That's all. But Putin's fucking crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, he is fucking crazy, and if he really wanted to start World War III, Seattle would be a hell of a good target.
I figured he'd just launch everything and we just retaliate and it's over.
I guess, yeah.
I would imagine if they're going to hit the West Coast, I imagine San Diego would probably be the first target. But
well,
the naval base is there.
We're not that far from Russia.
I can see Russia from my
house. I would see it from our house.
If North Korea is ever going to hit the U.S., then Seattle
he doesn't have the range
to be able to hit. No, they don't have range. They've got intermediate ranges. So,
boy, this is
positive. Okay. So back to the H-bomb in the
drink.
Show.
Dark.
Seriously, I'm gonna have a drink and some iodine pills. Alarmed, he jumps back, heads down to the edge of the firing tower, climbs down the ladder, and begins walking back towards Ellie. He says, "Back up, get back. It's unsafe. We need to move." She threatens him in case he's pulling something, and he scoffs at the idea of firing a rifle next to a hydrogen bomb, which wouldn't really fucking do anything anyway. I know, but whatever. He tells her there's a crack in the casing and it needs to be filled with lead and buried in the ground. Ellie is arguing with him about doing this, saying that he promised to disarm it. Daniel insists that if they bury it, it won't go off. She's pushing him to disarm it, but he asks her to trust him that this will work. Again, she pushes and wants to know how he can be so sure. So Faraday blurts out, because 50 years from now, this island is still here.
Zoinks!
Whoa.
Ellie is surprised and confused and says, "What did you just say?" And Faraday replies, "Well, take it easy. I can explain myself a little better. I know how this sounds. Believe me, it's hard to explain. 50 years from now, me and my friends, that's where we're from, okay? And here's the key. Everything's fine. I'm not saying it's perfectly fine, but there hasn't been an atomic blast, all right? There is not." But before he can finish his sentence, Sawyer pulls a lock in the box, jumps out of the bushes, and says, "Drop the gun, blondie."
Yep.
Juliet follows him with Mattingly's machete. Ellie drops her rifle and puts her hands up. Juliet takes the gun. Sawyer looks up and notes the firing tower with Jughead swaying not too gently in the wind. He whispers,
"That's totally like his tagline. It's hilarious."
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Ellie looks at Faraday and sarcastically says, "Are they from the future too?" And Sawyer replies, "You told her?"
Oh my God, that's so fucking funny.
Back in the present, off the island, an elevator bell rings. Desmond steps out onto a posh business lobby and marches right past a secretary who sits in front of a Jackson Pollock painting. Melanie appears to be of Indian or Southeast Asian descent and is quite piqued at Desmond's ignoring her. Desmond throws open the double doors to Charles Widmore's office, where Widmore sits at his desk reviewing some papers.
I wish we're not seeing him.
Yep.
What?
Desmond locks his eyes with Widmore as he approaches. Melanie enters. The receptionist is apologizing to Widmore, but he says, "That's all right. That's all right, Melanie. Mr. Hume is a colleague of mine."
Yeah, sure.
Melanie and his security guard leave the room. Desmond says he's not going to answer any of Widmore's questions, but Widmore is going to tell Desmond everything he needs to know, and then he'll never see him again. Widmore agrees, so Desmond says, "I need to know where I can find Daniel Faraday's mother." Widmore wonders why Desmond would think he has that information, so Desmond says, "Because even before you put Faraday on your little boat and sent him off to the island, you spent 10 years funding his research. So I figured you must know something regarding his next of kin." Widmore doesn't answer and asks if Penny is safe. Desmond ignores him and says, "Where's Faraday's mother?" Widmore pulls out a leather-bound address book and says, "She's in Los Angeles. This is an address for her. I suspect she won't be very pleased to see you. She is a very private person."
This is when I realized.
Oh, because why? Because who's in Los Angeles, Derek?
The crazy time travel lady.
Oh, yeah, she is. Good catch. I'm proud of you there.
Desmond takes the paper and turns to leave, but Widmore stops him and says, "Deliver your message, but then get out of this mess. Don't put Penny's life in danger. You're getting yourself involved in something that goes back many, many years. It has nothing to do with you or my daughter. Wherever you were hiding, go back there." Desmond sort of scoffs
This is like
at
the
him and
one
leaves.
time that Widmore wasn't a complete and utter asshole.
Yeah.
He's actually worried about his daughter.
However, I don't think this is going to be reflected in the rankings,
No.
but
No. He's still a prick.
I think he still gets hate fucked.
Yeah, a little bit.
Back on the island, somewhere in time, Locke is descending into the valley where the others' camp is while screaming, "Richard Albert!" Jones, who is seated and having his wounds tended to, tells Locke not to move. Locke keeps screaming for Richard. Jones gets up and picks up his rifle. A number of others follow suit, one of them covering Locke
A number
with a
of
bow and arrow.
others.
Jones ordered...
Other
others, yeah. Jones orders Locke to the ground, but Locke passes right by him, yelling, "Richard, I need to talk to you."
He just strolls right on in.
That was badass. I got a little wet. It was hot.
Ooh.
I like it.
Jones follows Locke and puts his gun at his back. Locke raises his hands, and Richard appears and says, "That's enough. Who are you?" Locke introduces himself and says that Jacob sent him.
Whoa.
Okay.
Name drop Jacob.
Got
Seriously.
my ears.
The two men stare at each other for a moment, and then Richard tells Jones to lower his gun. Jones refuses, saying they can't trust him. So Richard slaps his rifle down and says, "I said put the gun down, Widmore."
What?
This is when I was thinking that you were going to figure out who Ellie was, because if Widmore's on the island,
Right.
and Ellie and la da 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 da. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, you got it slightly sooner. Were you shocked, Derek, when he said that?
Yes,
Okay,
I
good.
was.
I'm glad.
Locke says, "Your name is Widmore? Charles Widmore?" And then Widmore asks, "What's it to you?" I perfectly pleased, Locke replies, "Nothing. Nice to meet you."
Widmore
he
is
was
like
so pleased.
Oh, loving it.
annoying, and I just kind of want to smack him. He sounds like a petulant child. Yeah, what's it to you? You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Widmore.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So Charles Widmore and Daniel's mom knew each other in the 50s on the island. Blows your mind, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the present, off the island. Below deck on the sailboat, Penny
Wait a
lays curled
second.
up on a...
One more thing. Have you figured out the name yet?
Of
Ellie, have you figured out her full name yet?
Eloise.
Yeah, so that's what a couple episodes ago or last season,
Right.
what Dave meant by how it was hilariously named. He did name the rat after his
Rat.
mother.
Exactly.
It's just fucking great.
Below deck on the sailboat, Penny lays curled up on a little couch with a little kiddo who's fast asleep while she's telling him a bedtime story.
Do you hate
no,
this
this
kid
one's
too,
not
Christy?
as annoying as Aaron.
He is cute, and you can't hate him considering
Yeah.
his namesake.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Sally.
hmm
She looks up to see Desmond there. They whisper hello to each other. They ask about each other's day, and Desmond says that he discovered that Faraday's mom died years ago.
What?
Liar!
Sees through the subterfuge immediately and says, "Why are you lying to me?" Desmond scoffs at this and tries to pretend he's not lying. But when she pushes, he finally says, "Los Angeles." Penny turns away from him, and Desmond tells her that she's got nothing to worry about. This was a mistake, and after he promised one day that he'd be done. She wonders what happens when he remembers something else. He claims he'll forget it. But she pushes, and the next day, Desmond replies, "I'll forget it. It doesn't matter, Pen. You're my life now. You and Charlie."
What?
Charlie!
Charlie!
Oh, he named him after Charlie, and this makes me cry.
"I won't leave you again. Not for this, not for anything." Desmond holds Penny's head in his hands, and she scoffs and says, "You'll never forget it, Des, so I guess we're going with you."
Oh,
Finally, she accepts it.
Well, at least that.
Yeah.
Somewhere in time, back on the island, inside a tent at the army camp, Richard examines a compass in his hands while Locke sips a World War II-era tin canteen cup. Richard says, "I gave you this?" Locke explains to him what happened, and when Richard questions why he doesn't remember it, Locke says, "Because it hasn't happened yet." Richard chuckles and wants to know what Locke expects him to do. Locke says he needs a way off the island. Richard tells him that's privileged info, so Locke informs him that Richard said he has important work to do and that he's the leader. Richard says, "You're my leader?"
You?
Look, I certainly don't want to contradict myself, but we have a very specific process for selecting our leadership, and it starts at a very, very young age.
This is fucking wild right here.
Yeah. Yeah, this closes a pretty cool loop right here.
Yeah, it really does.
Locke responds by asking what year it is, and Richard tells him it's 1954. So Locke says, "All right, May 30th, 1956, 2 years from now, that's the day I'm born in Tustin, California. And if you don't believe me, I suggest you come visit me." Locke smiles at Richard, and then a high-pitched humming starts.
No.
Locke freaks. "It's about to happen again. You need to tell me now, Richard. How do I get off the island? Please tell me." The humming transitions into a rumbling. The rumbling grows louder, and the scene is bathed in white light. The light envelops everything, and when it subsides, Locke is left standing alone.
Fuck.
Damn it.
He folds forward and puts his head in his hand. Just a few palm trees away, Charlotte and Miles sit with their hands still bound. Not far away from them, Juliet, Sawyer, and Faraday recover from the flash. Sawyer checks in on Juliet, and then Faraday runs to Charlotte, calling her name. He reaches her and makes sure she's okay while untying her hands. Miles says, "Yeah, me too. I'm great. I'm great too."
God
Poor
damn it,
Miles.
Miles.
Charlotte smiles gratefully and looks at him with googly eyes. Faraday touches her hair. Her eyelids flutter for a second, and she stumbles and begins bleeding from both nostrils. Faraday says her name just as she gasps and falls forward, having a seizure. Faraday kneels over, screaming her name. Julia and Locke come running. Faraday picks Charlotte up, hugging her, saying, it's okay, Charlotte." Lost title screen. End of episode.
Rocky! Adrian!
Who's ready for some fun facts not about nuclear war?
Damn it.
I am. Are we talking about biological warfare instead?
Ooh, nice. Throw some chemical in there.
Fun facts are about Oxford.
That's a smart subject.
Oh. I don't know what that noise was, but okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know.
It was so profoundly funny that you could not actually manufacture a normal response to it. So you just came out with that.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you that. So the University of Oxford is roughly 922 years old and is currently ranked #1 in the world.
I'm going to call bullshit that no one with the last name Faraday was ever employed there. At 900 years, that starts to strain credulity.
Yeah. Okay. So the meaning of the name Oxford comes from the old word Oxenforda, which is a ford in the river where cattle can cross safely. Up to 200 years ago, the only subject you could study at the University of Oxford was religion. until the curriculum finally expanded to all subjects. The divinity school. Yeah. And now, of course, Oxford is just full of all kinds of different schools within the university. So the divinity school was built in 1427 and is the first examination and teaching hall of Oxford University. At the time, there were no written exams, but oral exams where students would come for over 3 days for 7-hour blocks, answering question after question after question from their teacher. Local people could come and watch you take your exams if they wanted to, with half of the hall reserved for them to sit and observe. Isn't that fucking crazy? Like, get out of my finals, man.
They really did not have a whole lot to do to entertain themselves back then.
I was just going to say the same thing.
What are we doing Friday night? Let's go watch someone take a final exam. Yes.
Yeah, man. We're gonna pound some meat and have some mutton and fuck yeah.
It wasn't until 1878 that women were allowed to come and study at the University of Oxford. That's what you think of that. They were finally allowed to be awarded degrees in 1920, and it was only in 1974 that all colleges were open to women at Oxford University.
Can we watch women take their exams?
Especially the oral exams, too.
Oh, no!
That's why they came for 3
Set 'em
days.
up, knock them down.
Here's some good news, Christy. Currently at Oxford University, it is roughly 50-50 men and women. Undergraduates.
Only took 900 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh. So All Souls College is by far the most prestigious academic institution in the world. Only 80 people can apply per year, and only 2 students get in, sometimes just 1. The entrance exam is known to be the hardest university exam in the world. The answers are not a simple yes or no. Instead, applicants must very much creatively think out of the box and argue their answers well in order to stand a chance of entering. If you are lucky enough to get a spot, you can stay at the university for as long as you want, and you are given 1,400 British pounds per month, along with accommodations and food, just to study.
Damn.
Lawrence of Arabia was one of the lucky applicants to gain a place at All Souls College, excuse me.
Isn't it funny that it's called All Souls College, but only one person gets in? I mean,
Like it's one soul college.
One soul college? Like, come on, guys. Branding here.
Of all the things that Lawrence of Arabia achieved in his life, on his gravestone says one thing: Fellow of All Souls College.
Wow.
Oxford was not bombed during World War II. I bet Ben knew that. Oxford was very busy during the war building bombers, but historians believe that it wasn't touched because Hitler was planning to make Oxford the new capital of England after defeating it. In 1650, the first ever cups of coffee in England were served in the Grand Café in Oxford. Founded in 1621, Oxford's Botanical Garden is the oldest botanical garden in the world. Now I have 2 little tales that wrap into literature, which I thought were fun about Oxford, and then we'll move on. So, not Gilgamesh. The first, Alice, a little girl named Alice Liddell, whose father was the leader of the Christ Church College, often played at the university as a child. Charles Dodgson was a professor of mathematics and logic who spent time entertaining Alice while he taught there. He made up a story about her that he used to tell her during play, but refused to write it down as he was a respected mathematician and didn't want to be associated with children's books. However, 20 years later, as a wedding present for Alice, he wrote the whole story down and gave it to her in a book. Thankfully, she managed to convince him to publish it by encouraging him to choose a pen name. He chose Lewis Carroll.
Yep.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Yeah, and here's my favorite. Close to the University Church of St. Mary the Virgin, there is a very old, eye-catching door with a fiery lion reaching out from the center of the wooden core. C.S. Lewis was a tutor at the Magdalen College and walked past this door every single day before he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Very cool.
Yeah.
All righty then.
I think Bill Clinton went to Oxford, didn't he?
Did he? I don't know. All I know is he just came out on the Epstein list and some shit about how he liked him young like Epstein, and I believe every word of it.
I was going to say, is anybody at all shocked? Even a little bit?
No.
I do not like
shocked.
those young women there in the...
Oh my God. Honestly, I really hope more comes of this, and I hope they get every creepy pedophile and put them all in prison. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton or not.
Yeah,
Fuck
man. If he was actually doing that shit and they are able to figure it out, then throw his ass in prison. I mean, fuck him.
Or he'll suicide himself.
He balanced the budget. He did good for this country in a lot of ways, but that does not fucking cover up all of this other shit.
You'll be amazed about how many super rich people are pedophiles.
I would not be amazed because what comes with power is the ability to do dark things. Yeah, great, exactly. To do horrible things and get away with it. So no, that doesn't surprise me at all. That's why I think billionaires should be illegal.
Yeah. Most of us are fortunate enough to not have the money to act on those types of impulses.
Right.
I mean, that's part of it, yeah. And it's arguable that balancing the budget was a good thing because the disadvantaged communities that lost out on that would probably disagree with you, Ben. But we're not going to get into that.
Security too.
Yeah, we're going to get into best and worst moments. Let's start with Derek. What'd you think of Jughead?
The best moment was Locke waltzing into the other's camp and presenting himself to Richard, and also finding out that Charles Whitmore is there.
Yes, I love the the way you phrased it, presenting himself to Richard. I was just picturing him like walking up and just whipping his dick out.
Basically did. I mean, he was
I am presenting myself.
He's like
a big set of balls right there.
Hey, Dick, meet Dick.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Worst moment?
The worst moment was seeing Teresa as basically a vegetable after experiments that Faraday may have done to her on Whitmore's request.
Yeah, so is it even fair to say vegetable? Like, it looks like she's doing that time jumping thing. Why she hasn't died? Maybe because Whitmore's taking care of her. But remember, like, what was his name? Minkowski?
Yeah, she must be in some other time at the moment.
Right. Remember Minkowski was like, I'm on a Ferris wheel, and she wants her dolly. And it just seems like that's what he's going through, the constant or whatever. But she's constantly in the constant because she doesn't have a constant.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, Christy, what were your best and worst?
I liked the sweet moments. Daniel saying, because I'm in love with the woman sitting next to me. And then later on when Charlotte says that he didn't have to say that, he says, I said what I said because I meant it. Also, at the end where Desmond says to Penny, it doesn't matter. You're my life now. You and Charlie.
Oh,
Charlie.
Yeah. And then for me, the worst moment was Charlotte collapsing at the end just because of, all of the lovely moments that I just mentioned.
Well, of course. I mean, they admitted they like each other, love each other, whatever. So obviously she has to collapse now because this is lost.
Well, she didn't actually admit shit.
No, but you could see it on her face.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, the way the eyes were, she
was like, "Oh, he likes me."
Oh my God. I think my best moment also, I think we have the same ones, Derek. The Locke marching in there. It was the same as him last week with the knife entrance, and this time he's just boldly marching through the camp. I love the way he snubs Jones / Widmore. And then, of course, that reveal is like, holy fuck. I think you figured it out sooner than I did the first time I watched this. I don't think I realized that Ellie was Eloise for one or two more episodes when you're like supposed to find out. So good on you for figuring that one. I didn't really have a worse moment. This episode didn't really make me angry.
Yeah.
So
that's why I put because
because I don't know. I liked it. Ben, what about you? Best and worst?
I mean, I think my favorite moment, it's kind of the small things. One of my favorite moments was, again, when Richard Albert was like, look, I certainly don't want to contradict myself, but like just cheeky.
Actually, you're right. That is fucking hilarious.
It's almost like the last episode where he's like, it points north, John. Like,
Yes.
That was funny.
his delivery in all of these, like, because he is this kind of timeless thing, you know, you don't even really understand what the fuck is he. Like, he's almost like an entity, but he's always got this kind of cheeky sense of humor and very dry, which I've always found refreshing.
It's the dry, it's like the dry sort of plain explanation. Like he has this hilarious way of pointing out the obvious when somebody else is being too complicated. Like,
yeah, exactly. As far as least favorite scene, to be honest, it was when Desmond went to was at Oxford and went into like the underground place where like the fumigation, like that whole scene, I felt like you could just kind of take it or leave it. I didn't really think that it did a whole lot. It's like, oh, you know, you got the creepy groundskeeper guy that's like, oh yes, he did these bad things, but it didn't really do anything for the plot. So I thought that was kind of a throwaway scene.
Wait,
to find out about the girl.
No, that's how he found out about Teresa, though.
Teresa. Yeah, and I feel like there's like a couple other
ways the plot like that. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, it didn't need to be all creepy, like Igor coming out of the darkness. And
like it could have been like a much more normal thing where he goes in and, hey, there's a laboratory there, but it's different people, but one person somehow recognized him. Something like that could have been without having to have that, sort of easy master sort of thing going.
He could have found files with her name in them or something like that.
Yeah, sure. The whole dusty trope, that whole thing was just sort of kind of a little tired, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, shall we do some rankings? Let's start with Christy today.
I only have one person on the bottom, and that is one Charles Whitmore. Mm-hmm. He's a piece of shit. And then going up to the top, I have Sawyer in third place. I'm really loving his character arc, but he's still, popping off with son of a bitch every now and then. And then Daniel in second place and Desmond all the way up at the top. And then for fucking kill, I'm gonna get in the middle of Daniel and Charlotte for my fuck.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go ahead and
bloody nose for lubrication. Yeah.
Oh my god! Ew.
It's not really my thing, whatever floats your boat, Ben.
Red badge of courage there. Those red wings.
She's doing Rocky and the Physicist.
And I'm going to kill Widmore. Young Widmore, old Widmore, I don't care. He just needs to die.
Widmore's going to tank today, I think. Benjamin, what about you?
Let's see. I only had one person, or let's say at the bottom, I didn't have a third worst. It was one of those episodes where there weren't really that many bad characters.
Yeah.
I would say that, the ghoulish master guy or whatever, I put him in there, but he's not even really worth talking about. So,
and yet we are.
I've actually got Desmond.
What?
Because his constant affirmations that, I'm done. We know he's not done. He knows he's not done. Penny knows he's not done. And to hear him constantly say it over and over, it's getting a little tedious, to be honest.
Just admit it.
So,
yeah,
just admit it. Just admit it that this is your bag.
That's fair.
Worst, I've got Charles Widmore, but I'm going to preface that it is the Charles Widmore back in 1954. I actually didn't think he did anything wrong in his older, when he was here in the older.
Oh, just in this episode, you mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
At the top, third from the top, I've got Locke, just for, he's kind of in full Locke motion right now. He's doing his Locke thing. He's self-assured, and he's just sort of throwing his weight around in a way that is really fun.
Locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded.
That's right.
In second place, I've got Sawyer. He's been he's been a trooper. Yeah. He really doesn't know what the fuck is going on, and he's been a fairly good trooper. And he and what's her name, Juliet, seem to make kind of a good combo.
Indeed.
Christy the geek. I loved that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go. He's trying to be helpful, even though he's in a place where he can't really affect a whole lot of change, but he's trying to scratch out what good he can.
No, but he's leaning into the value that he brings, which is brawn and protection. And, he's doing, staying oiled so the ladies have something to look at.
Yeah. Keeping those abs nice and firm.
Yeah.
And at the top, I've got Dan Faraday.
Ooh, ooh.
I don't have a kill because there was nobody really worth killing in this episode, and I'm going to fuck Ellie.
Yeah, she's cute.
She is.
Yeah, she is.
Verified 19.
I was just thinking, if you're into teenagers,
I guess I know. Why don't you go ahead and do yours, Derek? Since now I know you're fucking Ellie.
Well, but if you fucked her now in 1954, she was 19. She'd be like 89 years old now. So you're good.
Yeah.
But you're gonna fuck Ellie, not the creepy time travel lady.
Right.
True.
I mean, I know what the saying,
exactly.
but you're not into
Take the
that.
scabs and let the pus run. Yeah.
Oh dear God!
Sandpaper
Jesus.
Sally.
Oh
gosh.
God.
Give us your
All right,
rankings, you nasty boy.
My worst is the young Charles Widmore, because the current version, he wasn't so bad, actually.
Yeah.
This is
a little
interesting.
tiny bit of redemption there. Tiny.
He expressed basically, it was like, "Where's my daughter?" Like, don't get her involved in this.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically.
Yeah, he
it.
did. Yeah.
Keep her safe.
Yeah.
And now we can understand that now that we know that he has been on the island for whatever reason. We don't know that quite yet, but I have been wondering, I know we talked about this end of last season or beginning of this, if some of your opinions would change once we met the island Widmore. Now, granted, everybody still hates this guy, but he was just revealed, like his story is still coming. And so I'm still curious to see if it changes anybody's minds once you start to learn his motivations in this game.
Well, like Ben, I hated Ben in the beginning, but now I don't. Once I learn more about him.
Yeah, so I am curious as to whether or not your opinions still will change on young Charles Widmore. But anywho's.
So my third best is Desmond. He was good. I liked him in this episode. Second best was Locke because of his determination to find out, how to get off the island, and it's the big old cojones he has right now. I mean, he is. And then my my best was Daniel Faraday because he helped save Miles and Rocky Dennis from the others, and just he's overall good geek.
Yeah, he's always trying, isn't he?
And I'm going to fuck Eloise, the young Eloise,
Ellie,
yeah. And I'm going to kill Charles Widmore.
Not the old lady and not the rat.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And you're killing Chucky. All right. Yep. So, for me, again, I just wasn't really upset by the episode. I did have Charles Widmore as the worst only because, he snapped his friend's neck out of nowhere. Like, what are you? Jesus Christ, man.
We don't know that they were friends.
Yeah, we don't know they were friends.
Yeah, they could have just been co-workers.
Could have just disliked him the entire time.
He snapped his co-worker's neck. But if they're all others, we know how the others live, and we know that they're in a community. So yeah, I mean, maybe they weren't buddies, but they were still others, still part of his group.
They weren't butt buddies.
Butt buddies. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Oh my God. So my third best is Ellie. Because I'm gravitating toward her because she's sassy and she's powerful and she's gun wielding, and it's like the early days of Kate and the early days of Danielle back in seasons 1 and 2, and I kind of love her. I think she's sort of channeling that vibe, and I love it. Number 2, I had Daniel Faraday because we've already talked about it. He's just always trying. And at the top, I had Desmond. I thought that he was brave to confront Charles Widmore to help his friend Daniel Faraday. And I thought, he promised himself he was going to find this task, and he went and he did it, even if he had to see Widmore. And so I respected that, and that's why he's at the top. I'm not killing anybody because I'm not mad. But I am having a threesome with Locke and Sawyer because one of them got me hot because he was a badass, and the other one got me hot because he was a sweet protector. And I'm gonna get in that sandwich. So, Ben, could you update us on what the rankings look like after 3 whole episodes of season 5?
Yes, I will.
All right.
Third from the bottom, we have Ethan, negative 19 points. He was in second place last, so he fell.
Okay.
We have Frogert doing a similar move, falling from first to second to the bottom. No change, negative 29 points.
Oh, gee,
And
I
we
wonder
have
who's the worst.
Yeah, we have a new bottom, a new power bottom here. It's Charles Widmore with a negative 32 points. At the top of the standings, we in third place have Sawyer with 14 points. Hurley hanging on to second place with 20 points. And
Not even being in it, and he's still in second. Good for you, Hurley.
And Dan Faraday with a far and away lead of 39 points.
Wow. He
Nice.
almost doubled his points in one episode.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Good for you, Dan Faraday. That makes me happy and excited because Daniel Faraday deserves the praise. All right, guys. Let's do some final impressions. Christy, what did you think about Jughead?
I just thought for the most part, it was just a really sweet episode. I loved, all the stuff with Dan and Charlotte and Penny, Desmond, and Charlie. And yeah, it's just a really sweet episode. I liked it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I feel like it definitely furthered the plot in certain ways. It wasn't like a nail biter. We did have the surprise of Widmore, but yeah, I agree with you. It was a lot about the relationships in this episode, and not just like man, woman, married or attracted to or anything, but friendships and things like that too. Seeing Sawyer kind of sticking up for the geek and whatnot. So yeah, I would agree. That I think that is the thing that was special about this episode. It's definitely a great episode. And obviously leaves me wanting more, right? Like, gosh, all of a sudden Desmond's headed to LA and we know the creepy time lady is in LA and everybody else is in LA. So what the fuck's going to happen
Ben
in
is
LA?
in LA.
Yeah.
I love
I'm really
LA.
I'm excited to see, how it all kind of comes together, right? Ben, how about you?
Yeah, a lot of the same things you guys have said. There was a lot of sweet moments in this episode that I thought were, typically that's not my bag, but in this episode, it did help provide some, some buoyancy to it, which was nice to finally get Faraday sort of admitting, under duress as it was, but admitting that he was in love with Charlotte is very sweet. To me, the thing that I found the most interesting about this episode is Alpert and the originals, and the others, or the other others, or whoever the fuck they are. Like, what is going on with that? How is he already there? Who is he? What is he? I like how they kind of tied up the whole, him going to see Locke when he was young. That whole thing, and what, like, when he brought the items with him and said, "These items belong to you. Choose which ones." Like, that whole thing is like, oh, whoa, that's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It answers questions.
I mean, he literally sent him to do that. It's fucking crazy.
So it answers the question of why Alpert was there to see him, but it creates a new question again. Who the fuck is Alpert? Like, what is he? So I thought that stuff was all very interesting. The stuff with the H-bomb I thought was a bit extraneous, to be honest. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it didn't really even need to be there. I understand they needed to have like a some sort of ominous existential sort of object in here, but I thought the time slippage or the time travel would kind of achieve that already. Mm-hmm. So, all in all, I thought it was a couple sort of tropes aside. The whole, abandoned research facility or whatever, that was sort of bleh. But other than that, I thought it was a really, really good episode.
All right. That leaves you, Derek. What did you think of Jughead? And you got any new questions, or are they just being answered this season?
There's a couple questions for answer, but I thought it was a really good episode. We got some more time traveling, and we end up in the 1950s, where Richard Alpert is the leader of this particular group of others. Mm-hmm. Desmond's in search of Faraday's mother, who I believe is the crazy time travel lady. Mm-hmm. And Widmore's on the island back then. Locke almost finds out how to get off the island, and he really wants to be the leader of the others. And the biggest question is, who is Richard Alpert and how is he everywhere in time? He just seems to be everywhere.
Yeah.
He is. And I will tell you who and what and where Richard Alpert came from will be answered before the show is over. And it is one of my favorite little, well, let's call it a loop tide, in the same way that we saw Locke send him off. When we find out his story, it's pretty fucking cool. It's not going to happen right away, and it's not going to happen next week, because next week it's going to be Wednesday, January 17th, and we will be back, season 5, episode 4. It's called The Little Prince. It's a Kate episode, and it's a Christy episode. The time jumps keep on jumping. We've got a little bit more of Kate's bullshit, and we get reacquainted with a couple of dead people.
What?
I kind of love that you gave Christy the Aaron episode.
Yes, and I did do that on purpose, and we'll talk about it next week. All right, bye.
Bye.
Lost in My 40s is a Space Bear Media production. Executive produced and edited by me, Lacey J. Sound engineering, editing, and original music by Benjamin Trimp. Like and follow Lost in My 40s on Facebook and SpaceBear_Media on Instagram and Threads. Plus, follow Space Bear Media on YouTube for extra video content. Or for everything in one place, go to spacebearmedia.com.